Good day and welcome to another session of the Massac Report. I'm Carl Bodner and I will serve as your host and moderator for this roundtable discussion. The topic of concern today is one of growing sensitive urgency. The issue is one that is unique to our time, and that is the need for digital citizenship. We all have heard of cases by which individuals have jeopardized themselves as well as others, ignoring the idea that First Amendment rights and the right of privacy are, in the theory, protected by law. In a society allegedly dedicated to an idea that no one should be allowed to commit slander or libel against another merely for the sake of personal want and convenience. Does this suggest we as a people need to confront and reconcile the responsibilities of moral citizenship to include the World Wide Web? Today we have guest panel who will share thoughts and ideas related to this issue of citizenship. Our panelists are, to my left, Mr. Jeff Seymour, Department Chairperson of Massac's Technical Education Department, and Senior Caitlin Carroll. To my right, Ms. Julia Strong, Dean of Students and Teacher of Psychology, and Senior Nick Davies. I am eager to hear what each has to offer. Please remember that this is a roundtable of open discussion, not a debate to which one is relegated to argue one side. Each panelist has agreed to be first respondent to one question, but all enjoy the freedom to interject and respond to comments of another. Our first question is directed to the expanse and consequence of cyberbullying. Bad behavior is a decision, a matter of choice. It is also very damaging to the character and dignity of others. Can the law have any means to change bad behavior, or is this a matter of something that is to be learned from parents, guardians, and schools? Ms. Strong, could you share your thoughts on that?
I'd be happy to. Thanks for including me today. I believe that it's a very common argument that we hear when we discuss this, especially in school, that how people treat each other on Facebook is a matter of personal decision-making, and that the people who do that are behaving badly, but there's nothing we can do about it, either as a school or as a society. It's just a personal thing. And if people are going to be mean, they're just going to be mean. I do acknowledge the personal capacity we all have to be a nice person or not a nice person, but I also believe that public policy does influence personal behavior. If you look back in the past to discrimination or segregation, these were Americans behaving badly, and when it became illegal to do that, I wouldn't say that that completely disappeared from American society, but certainly as institutional racism disappeared from America, personal racism also has declined, and I think that social research would support that. So even though we're talking about something that is private behavior, I believe that public policy reaches into private behavior, and so if this type of bullying was caught up to by the legal system, we would see a decrease in it.
So in essence, what I think I'm understanding from your comments is, even though we would like to believe people will exercise self-restraint to make a democracy a democracy, sometimes we need a little bit of push from government to modify our behaviors for the protection of all.
I agree.
Anyone have a reactive thought?
Yeah, although we all have the right under the First Amendment for free speech, there are certain boundaries which should not be crossed. Once a student feels threatened or becomes so hurt by comments that are posted online that they cannot function as a student in school, then action needs to be taken by the school to protect that student and make them feel like they're in a secure environment in order to be able to learn and grow as an individual.
What action do you think the school could take?
Definitely some measure of punishment needs to be taken to show that this behavior is not acceptable. Whether that's suspension or detention, something needs to be done. But I think more than just the punishment itself, we should also be teaching students so they know what they're doing is wrong and how they should act on with these methods of communication.
What do you think, Mr. Seymour? Do you think a suspension or something of that nature would help rectify this?
I think it might help the worst cases, the ones that we hear about. And I think it's important to have rules in place that can address some of these issues. And I think we already have them. I mean, we have bullying laws, we have harassment laws, we have assault laws. I just think that some of these laws, particularly outside of school, are pretty blunt instruments, and that they're not as fine-tuned as they should be to the realities that we face today. I also think that there already are tools that administrators could use to punish the conduct that's clearly out of bounds. Then it becomes a question of how do the administrators get involved, who brings it to their attention, because I think that what we see in the headlines is just a tiny sliver of what's really going on out there. This is something that's getting way ahead of the law and way ahead of administrators, and no matter what we're doing, we're playing catch up, and the kids are always going to be a couple of steps or even a couple of technologies ahead of us. So it's incumbent upon us to keep our eyes out and keep moving forward to try to catch up to them so that children aren't hurt.
What about you, Nick? Do you have any thoughts?
I would like to comment on the idea of the consequences of bullying. With the wide expanse that the internet has today, I think it's too difficult to find out, to find all the different occurrences of the bullying that exists. Like as Mr. Seymour said, he said we can notice the big and hurtful comments made by such as the Rutgers student that had him commit suicide that led to that. But the smaller ones that still hurt children and other kids and teenagers are never really brought up to the public's attention, and therefore I think it's too difficult to really put a certain consequence on cyberbullying since it has such a wide variety. But instead it should be more focused upon the parents, and the parents should be teaching the morals from the start, because the consequences are it's too broad of the internet, and you can't find out each of the occurrences that happen to all the students.
So tracing who's committing the act is certainly a challenge.
What you're saying reminds me of texting while driving, and the idea that it is illegal now to text while you're driving, but the bigger issue is distracted driving. And we can't come up with a law and a consequence and a fine and a ticket for every different thing you could be doing while driving. That's not a good idea. That hurts other people or endangers yourself. So the bigger picture is focus on what you're doing and make the driver feel like they should be behaving a certain way. It reminds me of what you're saying, that we should try to raise kids to be good citizens on the internet rather than try to figure out how to catch them for everything they might do wrong on the internet. I would respectfully propose a two-pronged approach, and that the presence of consequences and the sort of public proclaiming of them would serve to reinforce that. But I hear what you're saying, that people can always find a way.
That's for sure. Needless to say, we've proven that throughout history.